and welcome to another Hayley-Roxanna crafts video. In my last two videos I showed you how we do full cross stitches and partial cross stitches. So today we're going to look at backstitching. Backstitching is always completed after you have done all the full and partial cross stitches of your design, and it adds detail and finishes off your cross stitch. To me, it's my favourite part of doing cross stitch, as it's when I see what I have stitched actually coming to life. So this is how the backstitching is shown on my charts. It's shown in colour on both the colour charts and the black and white chart, as this just makes it a bit easier to distinguish where different colours of thread are being used in the backstitching. The colour on the chart is usually similar to the colour of thread that's being used, but do be aware that sometimes I have to change what colour is shown just to make it easier to read on the chart. Alright, so now let's look at how we actually do our backstitching. I've got my Ada fabric and I have one strand of my thread, my stranded cotton threaded up into the needle. With backstitching, you most commonly only use one strand. There will be occasions where it may be two or even more if you want a thicker line for a different effect. But you're best off checking the key of the chart that you're doing to see how many you need. I always put a double knot in the ends of my single strands just to help anchor it when I'm starting my backstitching. As I've said before, some people prefer not to use knots, and I will look at other ways of anchoring your thread in later videos. Now when you're backstitching, as much as possible you want to travel hole to hole, so every time you pass a hole you're either coming up or going down. There are occasions where you may go over a few holes without going back down, just to create a different effect, such as like cat's whiskers or rabbit's whiskers, where it might look better without going down every single hole. But for today we will look at our backstitching going hole to hole. So if we just do a straight line to start with, so you want to come up in a hole like so, pull that through. Watch you don't pull too hard because you don't want to pull your knot all the way through as well, and then you go down into the next hole. Okay, and then if we're carrying on this straight line, we come up into the next hole like so, and then we go back down that hole, and then we'll go forwards again into the next hole. That's it, and then back down the previous hole. And if we just do that one more time, so up into the hole in front, next hole along, and then down backwards, hence backstitch, to the one behind, and there you go, one straight line of backstitching. If you want to turn the corner for doing that, you might come up, you could come up if I was going down here, say, and then come back into that, but you can also turn a corner by coming up in the corner and then down if we're going to go vertically in the direction you want to go in. Okay, and then we can carry on with the line going down like so. Okay, and so just up and down each hole to make your line. Now there are times where your backstitching might not go over just one square, it might cross a couple of squares. Okay, so if we're going diagonally, so if I was going just one square diagonally, then I could go into there. Okay, but there are times where it might cross over two. Okay, so it might come down two but over one, so then you'd use that hole to create that backstitch. It's just looking on the chart to see where it crosses in the corners of the squares on the grid and matching that up with the holes on your Ada as much as possible. Okay, so that's basically how you do cross stitching. So if I just show you that again, if we were going over a 2 again, right, so down 2, across 1 to insert it in, and then over like so. And these lines can go in any direction to put in any detail, outline whatever you've done, or however the backstitch is being used in the chart that you're following. So now if I pop back up the picture that I showed you of how the backstitching looks in my chart, and if I backstitch this for you, I will show you how I would do it, because I sometimes do mine a little bit different. I don't always come up in the next hole and go back. Sometimes I will go forward to do my backstitching. Hopefully this will become clear as I explain. So starting here, I'll do the horizontal stitch. So I'll come up there and come across to here. Then there's a diagonal stitch. So for that one, I come up in there and then go back down into that hole, like so. Now the next stitch is a vertical stitch, but for this one I will come up here and go down here, okay. And then the next diagonal one, I can come up here and go across here. And then if you look carefully at the picture, the next stitch goes diagonally across 2 squares before it meets another hole. So it's 1, 2 and up to there, so it's like so, okay. And then the next one actually goes over 3, so you just need to work out where the hole is that you'd pass. So it's up 3 and across, well, across 1 and up 3. So across 1 and up 3, 1, 2, 3. So it'd be coming through this hole here, like so, and then down there. And then the next one, and this is one of those occasions where the backstitching doesn't actually go to a hole. Sometimes this happens and you just have to go down in the middle of a square, middle of the line. Sometimes the middle of the square if you were going diagonally, but here it's going horizontally, and it's only going halfway between the 2 holes. So for that, you just got to pierce the fabric and push it through like so. And then that is exactly how it is in the picture. Okay. So now we can have a look at the backstitching on the castle hanging decoration that we've been working on. As you can see from these photos, since the last video, I have completed all of the cross stitching, full crosses, quarters and 3/4 stitches, as these need to be done before you look at any backstitching on a design. As you can see, these photos show you as I completed each colour on the chart, just to give you an idea of how it built up to the final castle. Okay, so we now need to decide where we're going to start backstitching. So if we get the charts in, while I was doing the cross stitching, I used this chart that hadn't got any of the backstitching on, just to make sure that I could see all of the symbols clearly. For the backstitching, we obviously need the chart with the backstitching on. As you can see, there are a few different colours of backstitching. So there's a little bit in here. There's the bits around the castle and the flags and the flag poles. And then there's all this background sky colour. And to me, that's probably the best place to start backstitching, with this blue. Just because it's in the background, whereas all the other cross stitching is on foreground items, so you'd want to make sure that that's in front of the sky background backstitching. So if I turn this over, the blue, as you can see here, is in 1 strand, and it's DMC 809. Okay, so if we get some of that out of the box, we can then thread that up ready to start. So here's my box of thread. This is the DMC 809. Okay, just move the box out of the way. And then take this off. I've actually got threads there that are leftovers from ones I've used before. So we'll just pull this bit off. Pop that out of the way. Okay, so there's 4 strands here from the 6 strands because it's one that I've already partially used. So we just need to pull out 1 strand, if I can get hold of it, like so, and pull that out. So I've got the 1 strand of thread, and we will now thread this up. So if I pop the double knot in, ready to stitch. Like so. Another one. I always just use my needle to help push it under and then guide it so that it finishes on top of the other knot to make sure it's double knotted. And then we just thread up. Ooh, thread up the other end. And remember, we always bring the needle, make sure I've got the end with the eye, that helps. Bring the needle to the thread when we're threading up, and not the thread to the needle, like so. Okay, so that's my 1 strand, as it says there. So if we turn back, in some ways this back stitching could be interpreted as doing half stitches, as it's like half the cross in one direction if you look at it that way. But I'm just going to treat it as normal back stitch, as on my charts that's how my half stitches are shown anyway, just as back stitches. So I'd start over here. Okay, so if I get the castle up, you can see this one here would come from this green here, and that's where I'd start. So pop the needle in, pull it through. Remember not to pull too hard because you don't want to pull the knot through. And then pop that down, and that's that bit done. And then the next one, you want to start 1 square down. That's there. And this time we've got 2 diagonal lines. So 1, and then 2. Like so. And then the next one starts here. Now you could go right up to the top or right down to the bottom. To be honest, the bottom's probably the easiest place to start, so we'll go with that. Okay, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. You just want to make sure that you get the lines, replicate the lines on the chart onto your actual cross stitch. So this time we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 diagonal lines to do. So let's complete them. So there's 1. And then I've gone that way, so I've sort of stepped forwards and down. You don't want to pull your back stitching too tight, as you don't want to make the holes big, but you do want to make sure that it lies flat and to make the line as straight as you possibly can. Ready? Okay, 4. Now, as this is relatively straightforward, as you haven't got any of the crosses or anything to deal with while you're doing this back stitching as such, I'm going to just switch the camera off and just complete all of this blue, and then I'll come back and we will have a look at the back stitching that goes around the castle and the flags. So that's all of the DMC 809, the sky, all back stitched. Okay, so next thing we're going to look at is the back stitching on the castle. So this back stitching is in DMC 921, and again we want 1 strand of that. Okay, and I happen to have that all threaded up, ready to go. So I'm going to start by doing the back stitching just around this little flag here. And as you can see, it just follows the shape of the flag here, but not on this little patch here where we've got some grey back stitching, which we'll look at in a bit. So on our actual decoration, we need to start in this corner here and pull through, not too hard. We'll go down in this hole. Up in the next hole. And down. And then up in the next hole. And down. Now, the next stitch, we just need to be careful, as we may have trouble just getting our needle into the right place here where we've got these 2 3/4 stitches meeting. We need to make sure that it comes through. There we go, that's not too bad actually, like so. Okay, so we're not going to split the threads, and when we pass it through it sits in the right place. Okay, sometimes where you've got 2 3/4 crosses meeting, it might actually be easier to come up in, oh, it's not today though, there we go, come up in the bottom corner like so, the corner away from where they meet, and then push your needle down where they meet. Okay, personal preference thing, whichever way you feel you need to do it. Sometimes it can just depend on how you've done the stitches. I'll show you that carefully. Okay, just make it look neat and tidy so your back stitches are sitting in the right place. Okay, so if I just come along and finish the bottom part of this flag, like so. There we go. Okay, so there's that flag done. Now from there, I'm actually going to move to here, the corner of the castle, just so I can go along here and just show you this little bit up here where we've got the 1/4 and 3/4 stitches. Okay, just to show you what the back stitching looks like here. Okay, so I'm going to start on the corner of this castle, like so, and just come across here where there was just the 3. Now, if we look on the chart, just pull that through. If we look on the chart here, this little bit of back stitching here does go through a hole there, but here it falls halfway between 2 holes. Okay, so to do that, we'll come up where it does go through a hole. Come up carefully so as not to disturb the crosses too much. That's it. And then we need to come down halfway between these 2 holes. And you'd probably be best trying to get it under the back stitching that's already there. Like so. Okay. Now the next stitch, we can go from this hole again. But the next time it meets a hole is up here, so it's going across the 2 squares. If you want to count the holes to make sure you're only going across the 2, you are going to come to the right 1 square and then up 2 before you put the needle down. So if we put it up here, like so, okay, and then you go across 1, but up 2 holes before we insert the needle again. Okay, like so. And if we look at the side here, look at all of this, it's all exactly the same. They're all going across 2 right up to the top and all the way back down the other side to here, where you've got another one that finishes, another back stitch that finishes halfway between the 2 holes. So I'm now going to stitch all this for you to see. Okay, just like so. So we're coming all the way back down the other side, just like this, and get my needle in. I just need to fold that edge over just to make it a little bit easier to reach the other side. And then we've got that one that comes halfway between the two. So we've got to come up in this bit. So we need to come up halfway there. So it's halfway between the hole here and the hole here. And we go back down into that hole, like so, okay? Now normally I would just carry on stitching from there around the rest of this, working my way around. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to thread up another strand of this, of the same colour, just to show you some back stitching on this patch here where we've got 2 3/4 stitches in the same square, just to show you how to do that. Okay, so I've just threaded up another piece. I will just move the one I've left attached for now, just pull it over so it's out of the way a little bit. Now I want to have a look at these back stitches here, where you're going over where you've got 2 3/4 in the same square. Okay, so I come up at the bottom here. And what you need to do when you're stitching where there's 2 3/4 in the same square is just make sure as you go down into the next hole that the thread, as you pull it through, just move that a little bit out of the way. Okay, so as you pull it through, you want it to sit so you've got the one colour one side and the other colour on the other. Okay, so I'll do that again on the next one. Up there, and then down into there like so. Okay, and then just as you pull it through with your thumbnail, just try and guide it in like so. Sometimes after you've done the stitch you might not be quite happy with it, you might just need to tease it into place slightly and give it a pull, just so, get that in, there you go. So it sits between the 2 longer stitches of the 3/4 stitch. Okay, just to make sure that you can see where it is, and so it actually gives some definition to your design. Okay, so now we can carry on stitching the rest of the back stitching on this. Okay, let's move this out of the way a minute and we'll have a look on the chart. So we've got, there's a little bit in the green down here, which if we look on the key is DMC 164, and again it's 1 strand. And then the only other bit of back stitching is this grey here for the flagpoles. Okay, well, on the key, the grey is DMC 648, but this time you're going to use 2 strands of the thread. This is because with the flagpoles you just want them to be a little bit clearer, a little bit more defined, just to make them look a little bit more like flagpoles. Needs to be a little bit bolder, so you use the 2 strands so it's that little bit thicker. Back stitching's a bit thicker just to make it stand out a bit more. And if we look again at the chart, there are these little like blobs at the top of the flagpoles. These are French knots. Now this is something that we will look at next time in my next video, once all the back stitching is finished. Okay, so if I leave you to finish all the back stitching, and then next time we will look at the French knots, which will complete the castle hanging decoration cross stitch. Okay, and it should all be nice and defined with the back stitching. So that's your back stitching. I will pop the links below to the castle hanging decoration chart and to any of the other items that I've used in this video. And if you've got any questions, stick them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.